magazines and night sight, starting at just $399. $399! These Glocks will not last long at these prices.
On with us, we'll earn your trust. Sell to us without any fuss. Buy from us, you can rely on us.
At U.S. Money Shops, there is no shortage of guns. So if you're looking for the best deal on firearms, then check us out first. U.S. Money Shops. Wide selection, great prices. So hurry on down to one of our 9 convenient locations. Visit us online at usmoneyshops.com for the one nearest you.
Buy or sell or pawn today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
U.S. Money Shops. Buy, sell, pawn, we do it all.
Tea cookies, thumbprint cookies, chocolate burgers.
All of this and more is available at the Village Bake Shop, open from 6 to 6 Monday through Friday and 6 to 5 on Saturday. The Village Bake Shop's located at the Village Green Town Center and has been satisfying Cleveland's sweet tooth since 1961. Give them a call at 476-5179 or come and see them at the Village Green Town Center.
Brownies, cupcakes, wedding and birthday cakes, muffins, pies, Danish.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
Right here at the Village Green Town Center. I think we missed the first part of that. Welcome back to the Whoop Studios right here at the Village Green Town Center. Anyway, I've got John Stanberry in here, one of our regulars, and this morning's setting in for Franklin Chansey, who is thinking about converting to the Republican side, had to have a week off, is Eric Armstrong, an attorney here in town. Anyway, good to have you again with us, Eric.
All I can say is that I'm just extremely alarmed at all the things that get said about people when they're not in this studio.
I didn't say a word.
Anyway. I didn't necessarily say John did, but like I say, I'm just rather alarmed.
Anyway, we've had there's a lot of things we could talk about, but I think sometimes it's really good just to get it direct. So I'm going to let our engineer put something on for us to listen to it this time, and then we'll comment on it.
I think it's not just an economic issue. I think it's a moral issue. I think it's frankly not moral for my generation to keep spending massively more than we take in, knowing those burdens are going to be passed on to the next generation. So how do we deal with it? The president would prefer raising taxes. I understand. The problem with raising taxes is that it slows down the rate of growth, and you can never quite get the job done. I want to lower spending and encourage economic growth at the same time. What things would I cut from spending? Well, first of all, I will eliminate all programs by this test if they don't pass it. Is the program so critical it's worth borrowing money from China to pay for it? And if not, I'll get rid of it. I'll take programs that are currently good programs, but I think could be run more efficiently at the state level and send them to the state. I'll make government more efficient and to cut back the number of employees, combine some agencies and departments. My cutbacks will be done through attrition, by the way.
And so I put forward a specific $4 trillion deficit reduction plan. It's on a website. You can look at all the numbers, what cuts we make and what revenue we raise. And the way we do it is $2.50 for every cut. We ask for $1 of additional revenue, paid for, as I indicated earlier, by asking those of us who have done very well in this country to contribute a little bit more to reduce the deficit. Governor Romney earlier mentioned the Bowles-Simpson Commission. Well, that's how the commission, bipartisan commission that talked about how we should move forward, suggested we have to do it in a balanced way with some revenue and some spending cuts. And this is a major difference that Governor Romney and I have.
Well, we heard a little bit of the debate there, and we've got some more cuts that we'll play here in a few minutes from that. But, basically we're talking about the deficit and trying to stop spending. Now, I think I heard Mr. Obama say something about for every $2.50 saved that are got to take in another dollar in tax.
Right.
How does that work?
Good question.
Okay.
I mean, really. I mean, as far as the exact mathematics of it, I couldn't tell you. I trust the people that are in a position to know. This is probably coming from objective sources, Office of Management and Budget and people like that, I guess. But I mean, that's where most of these supposedly independent studies are coming from, I guess, but I don't know specifically where he's getting his numbers.
Well, the interesting thing is his Bowles-Simpson committee put forward a plan, and I didn't agree with everything in the plan, but he outright rejected the plan, didn't put it forward, didn't move it forward. It was his own commission that put it forward. And surprisingly, the Bowles-Simpson Commission, the president's own commission's plan, is almost identical to the plan that Mitt Romney's put forward. His own plant commission recommends pretty much what Romney's talking about. You reduce the number of deductions that people can take, the wealthy can take, and you cut all the overall rates down. The interesting thing, and Red listens to this a lot, and I know she talks about the Romney's for the rich and I'm for the rich. One of the main differences between Romney's plan and the president's commission's plan is Romney actually cuts taxes for the poorest in America lower than the president's commission recommended. They recommend the bottom rate at 12% for the poorest in America. Romney's plan actually cuts that rate to 8%. So he actually lowers the tax rate for the poorest in America lower than the Bowles-Simpson plan, and the Bowles-Simpson plan is lower than the president's plan. So he's cutting taxes for the poor more than the president is. And yet the president has the gall to say he's trying to give all these tax cuts to the wealthy.
Do you think Obama's trying to move the the wealth of the rural areas to the cities? That's came up recently. That's some new comments being made that
sounds like a talking point from Fox. Maybe I've heard that the wealth redistribution argument's been made more times than I've heard, and to the point to where that I'm.
Well, when you look at the demographic printouts on the way the divide is between voters, this is not a rich and poor divide. It's really not a Republican and Democrat divide. It is an urban versus rural divide. You know, when you look at the map of what, like, for example, even these maps that show Obama winning the presidency on the electoral map, there's very few states that he's winning. But what he's winning is he's winning California with the big cities. He's winning New York with the big cities.
It's where all the people live.
Romney is winning. Actually, it's where all the people are concentrated. It's also where a lot of the money from government ends up being spent, and that's one of the arguments. You know, the people in the rural areas a lot of times don't get as much benefit out of the government as the people in the inner cities.
What? Go ahead and let's open up our phone lines, and we'll take some calls if anybody wants to call us. But, you know, what is they're talking about taking everything away from the federal government, or taking as much away as we can from the federal government and putting it back on the state level. You know, Department of Education. Why do we need it on the federal level?
Well, we probably don't. You know, there have been the problem with getting rid of the Department of Education. Lamar Alexander, when he ran, I believe, for president, advocated doing away with the Department of Education. But there's such a hue and cry, and what they do is, I'll give you a great example. In '96, Bob Dole advocated, and this was the Republican position in the Senate, we advocated, instead of giving the money for the school lunch program to the Department of Agriculture, who then gave it out to the states, which means they take a chunk of it to administer it. Right. Republicans said, let's send that money in block grants to each state, because what works to feed children in Tennessee may not work to feed children in New York State or in California. Now, that year, Bill Clinton had recommended a 3.1% increase in the school lunch program. The Republicans in the Senate were trying to give a 4.5% increase in the school lunch program. So they were actually giving a larger increase in the school lunch program, but they were bypassing the federal bureaucracy and sending it directly to the states. The Democrats trotted school children across the steps of the Capitol, said Republicans slash the school lunch program and children are going to starve. We were actually giving more money to the school lunch program. We were just not running it through the federal bureaucracy. The sad thing was the media participated in that. There were headlines all over the country, Republicans slash school lunch program, when we were in fact giving a larger increase to the program than the president was requesting.
All right, Eric, anything you want to say about that?
Well, if we're going to go back into when was that, during the Clinton administration?
That was 1996.
1996. No, I don't have anything to add to that. I want to talk about current politics, I guess.
But my point is, we've always believed in bypassing as much of the federal bureaucracy as you can, because all it does is waste the money.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I was fact checking here on some of these facts and stuff, and in reality, actually, the federal government borrows a little bit more than 30 cents on every dollar, and that is down mostly because China sold a lot of our paper, and then the Federal Reserve, which is a private banking entity, is actually the largest holder of our paper, which means they're monetizing the debt, which they said they would never do, which is probably even bigger problem than borrowing the money from China, is having the Federal Reserve monetize the debt and put that debt back on the American people, which is just an atrocious way to do business. I don't understand, how anybody could think that's a good idea. And all this federal spending, it's ridiculous. The school lunch programs, all this stuff should be reverted back to the states and to the local governments, where people control the schools, keep this Marxist ideology out of the school system.
Hey, Dan, let me interrupt you just a minute. Okay. What programs would you take from the federal government, just real briefly, and put back into the state hands? You got any suggestions?
Department of Education, the EPA. Well, let me tell you this, what I would do, Steve, every entity that is not a constitutional entity, in other words, there's no authority for the federal government to put those agencies into the system, they should be eliminated and get all those back as the 10th Amendment intended, that those should be reverted back to the states. And those things should be run at a state and local level so that people have control. We don't have to deal with federal bureaucracies. We don't have to deal with unelected bureaucrats and non-governmental organizations and agencies that run the government, and there's no accountability for those people. If it's not constitutional, it goes away. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever. If it's not constitutional, it's out of here. Because that's how our government was founded, and that's what it was designed to do.
All right, Dan. Anything else?
No, that'll work.
Thanks. See you. John's quiet. Eric's quiet. Nothing to say about that. Let's talk about the defense.
I'll just say this, and then we'll move on. I'm not so sure I agree with the caller's point about the EPA. I think that has to be a federal. I think that's required. I think you need that as far as federal control. Department of Education, there's a better chance that I would agree with you on that than I would on EPA.
Well, let me say something about the EPA. It amazes me that when a Republican says, let's do away with the EPA, people say, oh, my God, we'll have dirty air and we'll have dirty streams. Go talk to the EPA, the state EPA in California. Ask the people in California why they're paying over $5 a gallon of gas. It's because of the state EPA. So the idea that state EPAs can't be effective, can't be stringent, is ridiculous. Now, personally, the California EPA is literally killing the economy in California. And one big problem, the type of thing Dan's sort of talking about with the constitutionality issue, is right now the stimulus money that the president pushed through bailed California out. So taxpayers in Tennessee who have been responsible with their budgets, who have got their fiscal house in order, are subsidizing bad judgment in California, just like in Europe, where Greece and Spain and Portugal may pull the whole Euro nation system down. We're allowing these states that are just ridiculous in the way they're spending money, we're allowing them to be bailed out by the states that are being smart with their money, and they may pull all of us down.
Was that an argument for or against the EPA in general, John?
My point is, obviously, state EPAs can be as tough as or tougher than the federal EPA. So I don't have a problem getting rid of the national EPA and letting the states handle it.
Let's talk about the defense official orders Pentagon not to plan for automatic cuts. You know, they want to wait until after the election for any layoffs to show up.
This is a constitutional crisis. This is an imperial president, and this is a real danger to our democracy.
Well, I mean, I understand he's planning on paying all the legal defenses here or something. He's going to let the government pay for any legal problems that takes place.
Let me explain this. There's a federal law called the WARN Act.
Yep.
The WARN Act was passed in 2007. Well, I take that back. It was passed before that, but it requires 60 days of notice to an employee from any company who reasonably thinks there may be layoffs. Now, this is really, to be honest, should be the bread and butter of the Democratic Party. This is a worker protection issue. Matter of fact, in 2007, President Obama was supporting a amendment to that act which would have increased it to 90 days. So just
Senator then, I guess.
Senator Obama. He supported amending that to 90 days. Well, now the Obama administration, because sequestration may kick in on January 1st, all summer has been telling defense contractors, many of which the jobs are in key swing states, especially Virginia, that they don't have to obey the WARN Act. They don't have to send out notices to employees. And better than that, and this has never happened in the history of our country, the government has told these employers, if you get sued by an employee for not following the federal law, the government will pay you the legal defenses to defend you. So now the taxpayer is going to pay to defend employers who violate a federal law, all because Obama doesn't want layoff notices going out before the election. This is pure politics, taxpayer funding his reelection, and it's a violation of federal law.
I'm waiting for an argument here.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know anything about that issue, so why would I make an argument about something I don't know much about?
Right. Let's take a call. Go ahead, Colin.
Where's Franklin?
Franklin he had to take a week off. He's after that debate the other night. He's trying to figure out whether he's still a Democrat or not.
No, he's not no Democrat. He's Republican through and through. Just like John is.
Who, Franklin? Now, Franklin is not a Republican through and through, I can assure you, Red.
No, he's Democrat.
Okay.
John's the Republican.
All right. Now you got it right.
And Cecil was his daddy, and I used to argue with him.
Well, Red, did you hear me that Romney's tax plan actually lowers taxes for the poorest people more than not only the president's plan, but even the Bowles-Simpson Presidential Commission recommended?
I listened to that whole president debate, and it was a horror story all the way through. For both of them. I'm not counting one of them.
All right.
We need somebody to run for president.
Well, you got what you got right now. Which one are you picking?
I'm picking Obama.
He's going to raise your taxes.
Yep.
Nah, don't think so.
All right.
Actually, Romney's the one that's going to raise our taxes.
Actually, that's not true. If you want to talk about the Princeton economist.
Hey, Red, you got it stirred up. We got to go.
Oh, wait a minute. The other one that's in there, it's just in there saying what people want to hear.
What a time to stir it up, too.
And you watch him mess up.
Now say that again, Red, one more time.
The one that's running against Obama is just in there saying what people want to hear to get elected. As soon as he gets in there, he'll mess everything up.
All right.
Well, this one already has messed everything up, so you can't do any worse.
As bad as our economy is right now, Red, I mean, when you look at it, it's about as bad as you can get it. And we're headed towards the bottom of the well right now, and it's going to be dry.
Well, who got us in this position 4 years ago anyway?
Bill Clinton got us in it.
Oh, okay.
When
I forgot Bill Clinton was president in
2008.
Is that what it was?
He wanted everybody to have a home.
Okay, I got you.
Pull everybody out of it.
Now then, there's a lot of things happened since then that Republicans were involved in.
Yeah, they've contributed to the deficit in the 8 years before that too.
Actually, this president has run the deficit up more in his 3.5 years.
Hey, Red.
Than than Bush did in the total 8 years.
Well, part of the reason for that is because that's Keynesian economics. You spend your way out of a depression.
Nobody believes in Keynesian economics anymore except the liberals at Harvard.
What about cash for clunkers?
That's a large number of people that believe
What did
in that.
cash for clunkers achieve?
Cash for clunkers. Well, I can tell you a few of my clients that got new cars out of the deal
Can you-
that otherwise would have had no transportation.
Well,
I
let
can
me
tell
ask
that
you.
for
Let me
sure.
ask you a question. What about the young teenagers who are trying to buy a used car that the used car prices skyrocketed because they pulled them all off the market? And what kind? You talk about environmental issues. Who thinks it's smart to take a perfectly serviceable car that has cost a fortune in carbon footprint to build and smash it and throw it away?
Are you trying to tell me you're against?
I was
cash for
against
clunkers?
cash. Absolutely. It was a colossal waste of money, and it actually damaged the used car and the car industry.
That'll hurt my clients' feelings that got a clunker out of the cash for clunkers deal.
They most of the people, the statistics show, who did the cash for clunkers were getting rid of their cars anyway. All it did was give them an extra bonus. Now, I'm sure they were happy about it, but we all paid for it.
I think the cash for clunkers was a bunch of. I know I had an uncle years ago that used to fiddle around with used cars, and out in the rural area, he used to have one he'd set in the front yard all the time. He called them yard pieces. He said, "Yeah, I got me a couple of new yard pieces out of it."
Let me say one thing,
Yard cars.
because Eric mentioned that Romney's going to raise taxes.
Yeah.
That quote from Obama was based on a Princeton economist study. This is the actual professor. His name's Martin Feldstein. I'm sorry, his name is Harvey Rosen. This is his statement. Said a Princeton professor said that the Obama campaign is misrepresenting his work in a campaign email it sent out, and that Mitt Romney's tax plan does not require raising taxes on the lower and middle classes. But has the Obama campaign changed that tactic? No, they're still making the claim. Worse than that, you mentioned Big Bird.
Now we're going
PBS, no, I'm going to talk about Obama. PBS asked the president to quit mentioning Big Bird.
So did AARP.
Right. Do you know what the Obama campaign reply was? They'd think about it.
Yeah.
Now, you think about that. They don't care what anybody wants. They don't care what anybody says. This is all about reelecting the president, and that's it. You want to talk about job security. The only job security that President Obama is interested in is his.
Mm-hmm. We got a caller? Go ahead.
Yeah, guys, I hate to call twice, but Eric, you got to be kidding me, right? Cash for clunkers, what a monumental debacle. Do you know what the cost per unit that Cash for clunkers? $70,000+ was the total cost of every vehicle they bought back. You have decimated the used car market. You have decimated the used parts market for people who don't have money all the time to buy new parts for their used cars. You have destroyed those markets, and you've actually driven the cost of transportation for the average person through the roof.
Dan, do you know anything about the car business?
Yeah, I happen to be in that business. What a debacle! And this is just like
from your point of view.
Program. This is like.
Do you think $70,000 per unit is a good expenditure of taxpayer money, Eric?
Well, hell, they'd have been better to buy everybody a new Lexus.
What was they trying to accomplish with tax for for clunkers?
You know what?
Cash for clunkers. I'm sorry.
It's a big government program. Who knows what
Did they think everybody was going to go get rid of these cars and just buy a new one?
Well, supposedly it was going to stimulate the new car market. The problem is what it did was people that were going to buy a car in the next 6 months, they bought it during those couple of months. Now, yeah, did it bump those sales up? Sure. And then they saw dramatic drop-offs. And what Dan's talking about is it also, because they destroyed the cars, you lost all of the used car market and you lost all the parts market. Parts for used cars skyrocketed. One real problem was
they had to crush those cars. They couldn't.
They had to. They were required to crush them. One real problem was when you talk about helping the poor don't buy new cars. They don't buy Lexuses. They don't buy brand new Buicks. They buy used cars. And what you did was you destroyed the used car market and the used parts market. So if you had a used car, you couldn't get a part to fix it anymore.
Actually, what it did, it made the used cars that were left much more expensive.
Right.
Which makes it more difficult for the person trying to buy the vehicle. Right. This is another typical big government debacle. When are we going to learn that government has no business in the private sector whatsoever at all? Zero, zilch.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. We're getting towards the end of the show, and I want to talk about this a little bit. What about the debate coming up tomorrow night? with our vice president candidate, Ryan, versus Biden. What do you think we're going to be seeing out of this debate?
Well, it's going to be a continuation of some of the issues that were discussed in the previous debates and the ones that have yet to come, I would imagine, because of the fact that although vice presidential debates usually don't garner too much attention, I can think of countless examples of where the perceived winners of those debates weren't necessarily on the winning end in November. I suppose that this one perhaps may have a little bit more interest to it than others usually do, just by virtue of the fact that the first debate piqued so much interest. It was I think there were like over 60 million viewers of that first debate, and I suspect that you're going to see not nearly those same numbers in this debate, but I suspect that what you'll see a pretty high interest level in this one. I think a lot of people are going to be curious to see if Biden can repair some of the things that were not done in the first debate and try to set a good tone for the remaining two debates for the Democrats and for Obama.
Of course, one of the things I think a lot of people are interested in, a lot of times vice presidential debates tend to be harder hitting. Vice presidents a lot of times are considered the hatchet men. You know, they can take the hit to their personal likability. So I'm sure a lot of people will expect it to be a fiery debate, maybe a little bit harder. I tell you what worries me. In the vice presidential debate 4 years ago between Sarah Palin and Joe Biden, the overwhelming comment from the mainstream media was that Joe Biden won that debate. Sarah Palin made one mistake in that debate, and even it was an arguable mistake. She said that there were death panels in the Affordable Care Act. Now, there's no panel actually labeled death panel, but if this appointed board that Obama has put in place decides you don't fit the criteria for cancer treatment and you don't get your cancer treatment, you're going to die. But they labeled that a mistake. Biden made 17 provable, factual mistakes in the debate with Sarah Palin, and yet the overwhelming comment from the media was that he won. That's the only thing that concerns me, is how the media will try to spin that debate.
Well, it's the same thing that happened after this last debate. On points, Romney appeared to be the winner just by watching it, but if you went back and fact-checked him, a lot of the things that he said were complete inaccuracies and misstatements. Let me finish my point. You all have dominated the discussion this morning all day. Let me at least get in one last word before the show's over with. There were at least 10 or more misstatements or distortions of the truth or cherry-picked facts that Obama made, or rather that Romney made during the debate. He's changed, or he's modified his position on his tax program. He went from saying that I'm going to give a 20% across-the-board tax credit to everybody, which would add up to roughly $5 trillion, and now he's modified that position, and they're saying I'm not going to do that. Distorted or overstated the debt issue with China is another thing that he did. Restated this whole business of these death panels once again in the debate, which I thought had been dealt with 4 years ago, but apparently it reared its head in the debate again. There were other things too that he said. He overstated the health care cost premiums almost twofold. He overstated the amount of unemployment, on and on and on from there.
What is the amount of unemployment right now?
7.8% according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Yeah, by the way, folks, that drop in the unemployment rate the month before the election is the largest single monthly drop in 29 years.
So you believe in conspiracies, John?
Well, here's what I believe. They added 114,000 new jobs. That's not enough. Matter of fact, most economists expected the 114,000.
That's what was predicted.
And they expected that would actually bump the rate up to 8.2%.
So you do believe in conspiracy?
What I'm telling you is the other thing was a survey of households that they did, and they called and found that I think it's 873,000 people in the month of September started their own business. That's matter of fact, it's so bad even the liberal economists won't talk about those numbers.
Or part-time jobs too.
The huge number of them were part-time. And here's a real great one about Obamacare. If you work at any of the restaurants like Olive Garden or Red Lobster, you're getting ready to be part-time whether you want to be or not, because they can't afford the extra cost that Obamacare is putting on. Oh, by the way, folks, in my office, I got a letter the other day from my dental lab. Crowns dentures, bridges, which are technology that have been around for centuries, are now going to be taxed at 3.2%. So that's in Obamacare. He said he wouldn't raise taxes on the middle class. Everybody that comes into my office that gets anything I send to the lab, the American Dental Association, the American Association of Dental Laboratories, both have requested twice to be exempted from that new tax. They've been denied both times. That's a tax on everybody going to the dentist. Now you tell me, casting a crown is the same technology that's been around for thousands of years. You tell me why we now have to pay a 3.2% tax on that.
Don't know enough about it.
Neither do I.
All
John
right.
would know more about that because that's in his line of work.
It's in the Obamacare is where it's at.
Right. Anyway, we're coming up on the magic hour here. I've got I want to tell everybody appreciate you staying tuned. Eric, I want you to confirm.
But it's just not the case.
Franklin,
look, I got 5 boys.
Wait a minute. I've got something we're going to play anyway. I want you to confirm whether Franklin is now Republican or Democrat and let us know next week. Won't you come in and help him next week?
Well, if he needs my help, I'll be there.
All right.
I think I may be supposed to. I think I may be in court on that day, but who knows? Maybe I can change my schedule.
All right, we're going to go. We've got a few things we're going to play for you. Bye. See you next week.
But it's just not the case. Look, I got 5 boys. I'm used to people saying something that's not always true, but just keep on repeating it and ultimately hoping I'll believe it. But that is not the case, all right? I will not reduce the taxes paid by high-income Americans.
It's true, I'm not an American. I mean, I was not born in Hawaii. I wasn't born in the United States of America. I come from Kenya. As the Holy Quran tells us, the Holy Quran teaches that, the Holy Quran tells us, and the Holy Quran also says.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.